start?
For
31.
31 attendees. Start.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second MWX Insights Session. And we'll be talking about our predictions for 2026 in Southeast Asia. So, I'm Sophia, and you might have seen me in some of our short videos posted on TikTok and YouTube, as well as heard me on the Impulso podcast. A few housekeeping rules before we start. Please make sure you are muted, and if you have any questions, please drop them below in the comments, and we'll address them during the Q&A at the end of the session. So I'm pretty excited for the predictions that we have for this coming 2026. Our team has been working on it for about a month, and all of them may come true this coming year. But personally, I have a favorite one, which is the third one, something you'll find more about later. So a quick check, Ian, which you may have also seen in some of our shorts. What was the song again that we were playing just now?
The song was Mrs. by Dominic Fike.
Ah, Mrs. by Dominic Fike. Pretty good song. Well, we don't miss with our predictions. And on that note, don't miss us too much because we're going to bring in Jangan to dive into these predictions.
Hello. I can never have the same energy that Sophia has. Can you see me? Hey, hello, Jesse. Yeah. Hi, so the 8th of January, and it has already been a very hectic week for us. So today we're talking about the 2026 predictions for Southeast Asia. So on the cover, you might see
JC says you sound a bit soft.
I sound a bit soft. Hello, can you hear me better?
You have to keep talking.
Okay, so, yeah, better. Okay, cool. So on the cover, and you will actually see a bridge. That's a bridge under construction near Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So it's a photo that we took sometime in April last year when we were doing a program in Ho Chi Minh City. So the river, which I think by now has been completed, would cut the transportation time between two parts of the city by a lot. And of course, I think Ian and Sophia have already explained what this song was and why we picked this song. And personally, I was listening to this, I said, okay, this is not my style.
Did you know this song?
No, I don't. I listen to classical music sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, so predictions are a clarity exercise. What do I mean by that? So since 2017, at the end of the year, we would sit down and look at, okay, what has happened this year and what might happen next year. So we have been issuing predictions for 2018 and forwards. So not bad. I think 80% of our predictions actually came true. So the whole idea was we will look at, because we are living in a world where there's lots of noise. And if you read the newspaper, and every week you have a new trend, you have new happenings, and there are new technologies, and there are lots of things you seemingly need to pay attention to, but a lot of them is noise. And how do we decide which one is noise? And how do we decide which are the trends which are really relevant to us for the year to come, especially when we step into the new year? And I think the busy schedule would hit you very soon. I think it has already hit many of you. So we also did a e-commerce predictions in the middle of the year. That was the first time for us, about 6 months ago, when we were releasing the e-commerce in Southeast Asia report in 2025. So some of the predictions are already coming true, and you can expect the final verdict, which we will issue about these predictions towards the middle of this year in the e-commerce in Southeast Asia 2026 report. So today, we will go through the first 5 of the 10 predictions we have drafted for 2026 for Southeast Asia. First, TikTok Shop catches up with Shopee in parcel volume. Second, Shopee's defense puts more focus on instant delivery. What does that mean? Third, customer loyalty, LTV, and margin are being redefined, driven by Chinese competition. By the way, while I'm going through this, I think my young colleagues are taking selfies behind the scene. So number 4, AI reshapes organizations before products. And I think we have had lots of talks, lots of news reports, lots of reports about AI over the course of last year, what matters. So number 5, China-Southeast Asia collaborations shifting from supply chain transfer to operating model exchange. This year we have, last year, sorry, keep coming to 2025. So last year we have observed a lot of dynamics which are happening behind the scene, not in the news that you read about. And a lot of companies from China are actually reshaping their way of interacting with the Southeast Asian market, as well as the partners, consumers, and the whole ecosystem in Southeast Asia. So we'll go through all these 5 trends in a little bit more detail. And if we have some time, we'll have 5 more predictions, because in total we made 10. And, but this deck will be shared with you at the end of the session, and so you can take a look. So first, what happened in 2025? What a year. So we started the year by having lots of anxiety because there's a new guy in the White House, and that guy is vaguely familiar because he did certain things 4 years previously. So a lot of the discussions were around supply chain shift, as we had in 2019, as we had at the beginning of the pandemic. So the year turned out to be very colorful. So while in Southeast Asia, you might see a lot of the business trends seem to be going as it is, or sometimes driven by the supply chain shift. But across the globe, there are lots of things which have been happening. So of course, Mr. Trump with the Liberation Day tariffs, and most of the tariffs have been negotiated down by individual countries. And then in China, you have this epic battle between 2 companies, some say 3, Meituan and Alibaba in quick commerce. Tens of billions of dollars have been burned in this battle. And if some of you have been following the investment news this morning, Alibaba has just told investors that they will continue the investment until they hit market number 1. So if you observe the share prices of Alibaba and Meituan today, it's going this way. On the other hand,
Can you show where you are?
I don't know how to show where I am. Yeah. So on the top left, you see a giant ship. That's BYD. BYD has been shipping a lot of cars across the globe, and they have built giant ships to actually help them facilitate this process. They're also building factories in places like Brazil. So in Southeast Asia, I mean, in Singapore, where I live, I do drive in Singapore, and more and more BYD cars are on the road, and sometimes I become a bit jealous because these are cars which are cheaper than the one I have. I have a Volvo, and many of them have actually a lot of better features. So a lot of Chinese companies are coming out. So those of you in Southeast Asia will be familiar with the 3 beverage brands, Mixue, Luckin, and Chaji. They are doing things at scale, but they are very, very different companies. What is in common with them is in 2025, all of them opened up in the United States. So Mixue opened in New York and Los Angeles, Chaji in Los Angeles, and Luckin Coffee in New York. So we have done a lot of studies about these 3 companies. I think those of you who have been following our blog and our reports would know that. And there are also some companies which people are not really familiar with. Nova Coffee.
I think you can show with your mouse.
There
you go.
Is that my mouse?
Yes, that's your mouse.
No, that's not my mouse.
Mouse.
Sorry, this is, I use this as a clicker. It's not really a mouse, it's a clicker. I mean, it's in the form of a mouse, but it's a clicker. Anyway.
Sean can point.
Yeah, so Nova Coffee is a coffee chain in China which just surpassed 10,000 stores in the country. And when we met the founder in November in Shanghai, Yeah, he was telling me that he just sent his team across different continents to look for partners because they want to expand outside China. It was a very, very rapid growth story. And right above Nova Coffee, you would have East Rock. Have you guys heard of East Rock?
No,
You have,
no.
okay. Most of our colleagues have not. You tried drinking
We
it.
tried drinking it.
Okay, why?
It's like a slightly cheaper like Red Bull. I think.
Cheaper than Red Bull. Yeah, it's the most popular energy drink in China. So it's available in the petrol kiosks, as well as and all the places where lorry drivers, truck drivers typically hang out. And they have done a lot of innovation and in distribution as well as product to become the top one in China. And now they are very aggressively coming out. So I think the image you see on this is an ad they have in Malaysia. We know that the team have been to the Middle East, Africa, and many countries. So below you have KKV. I think many of us in Southeast Asia would probably have seen KKV stores across different countries. And some of you might even know that there are two versions of KKV. One called KKV, the other called Awesome. Awesome.
How do you spell it?
OHSAM, I think, SOME. So basically the two co-founders of KKV split the company, and somehow they decided both that Southeast Asia is a good market for them. China is very competitive for them. So if we go beyond, I mean, in Europe, in Latin America, in the Middle East, there are lots of dynamics, but I will not go through them in detail today because our focus today is Southeast Asia. Oh, awesome. So where do we get the intel inputs for our predictions? And actually, the way we look at the predictions is that, I mean, these are not sort of random thoughts that you just pluck out of your brain. You need to process a lot of, not necessarily data, but a lot of information that you get from different sources. And you see what's in common for them and what kind of trend they will show you. So I have to to bring up this book called The Selected Works of Mao Zedong. You guys might know Mao Zedong was the first communist leader of China who led the revolution successfully. But many of us would remember him as a late-life dictator who made lots of mistakes. But in his early days, he was a great strategist. And all the entrepreneurs I know in China, oh yeah, I should have a copy here, which I've been reading, during the holidays. All the tech entrepreneurs I know in China nowadays are actually reading his books because leading a small group of co-founders called Communist Party of China in 1921 with I think a dozen people, and overcome a hugely complicated competitive landscape to eventually come out on top. So it's no easy feat. So there's lots of reflections in it. What I want to point out here is an essay that he wrote in May 1930, almost 100 years ago, called A Report from Xunwu. Xunwu is a small county, rural, poor, mountainous, in the inland province. So he went there to study, okay, is there ground for revolution? Can I start a revolution there? So he wrote a very comprehensive report detailing things like how many pigs have been raised in this county, and how many sacks of rice, how many kilograms of rice are in the granaries in the county, etc., etc. So it's a very, very detailed report. And then he made a conclusion that, okay, the core issue in this county is the friction between the peasant class as well as the landowners. So there's a good place for revolution. So so I think this is the easy piece of paper. You can find it open source online. And this is what a lot of tech companies in China nowadays use, right? And they just tell their people saying, hey, when you go to the ground to study and whether we should initiate a new project or anything, you need to get to that level of detail before we can make an informed decision whether we start a new project. So last year, we probably didn't do as granular as the Chairman Mao would have done, but we did a lot. So we hosted I thought it was 13, but after detailed counting, we realized we did 14 immersions in 2025, and most of them actually going to different places in China. We've been to the factory floors, we've been to the warehouses, we've been to the companies, etc. And these immersions are not about seeing the cool stuff. I mean, the flying cars, dancing robots and stuff. Those things are nice. You can see them on TV, you can see them on YouTube, but they don't help you with your business. What we did was essentially 3 to 5 years, or sometimes 10 years of operational learning compressed into 3 to 5 days of deep discussions, so people take away with things that are relevant. We also published a lot of articles, 220 we counted, and a team was saying that, oh wow, I just realized that we were writing on the side of immersions and insights projects and stuff, and we didn't know that we actually did so much published work. We had 439 interviews. So these are some of the photos that we took during some of our immersions, and I want to highlight at least few because they are notable. So on the top left, Sean, if you can point to that, it's actually in Shanghai. It's me with Mr. Guo. Mr. Guo is the founding team member of Mixue, and he actually led Mixue's expansion into multiple countries in Southeast Asia. And the half-a-day exchange we had with him was packed with insights. And quite often, insights in a way that we had not thought about, but it's so obvious that we should go this way. And on the top right are the leaders of Ele.me, which is the food delivery arm of Alibaba at different stages. Founding team members, professional managers sent by Alibaba. They gave us a whole story about, how the food delivery, quick commerce, and e-commerce landscape evolved over China, which were the key decisions made at which point of time that led to what we see today. Because
it was also half a day of discussion.
It was very intense. It was very intense. It was very, very intense. And it got us to understand, right? Because a lot of time we look at, okay, things in China, people see it as a snapshot. Oh, it's so big. Why is that relevant to me?
Or you're not good.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
opposite
yeah.
side,
But the funny thing is that they also started from some point. So the food delivery volume for them in 2017, 2018 is equivalent to what we have in Southeast Asia now. And what they do from that point to where they are today, which is 20 times growth. So these were all the lessons which were distilled. On the bottom left, sorry, there's a very messy photo. It was a dinner I had with a group of sellers who I have known for a number of years in Shenzhen. And one of the guys, I will not tell you which guy, and at the beginning of dinner, he was telling me that, this year has been a bad year for me. I said, what happened? He said, I lost 2 billion yuan.
This year is what, 2025?
2025. That was middle of 2025. For a moment, I thought it was joking. Then I realized he really lost 2 billion yuan because of all the friction and stuff. And he was calm. He said, okay, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen everything. On the bottom right is our very good friend, Kai-Fei Yao, who's an e-commerce expert. I'll come back to him a bit later, but he is personally a good friend of one of the co-CEOs of Pinduoduo, PDD. And he was telling me that when he was in Guangzhou, every time he would always catch up with him, the PDD co-CEO. I said, what time and where you typically do that? He said, typically 1 to 4 a.m. at the McDonald's downstairs of their office, because that's when he just finished his work. Pretty hardcore. A little bit more details. So this is with the whole food delivery team. I think the guy used to run technology for Ele.me. The guy sitting in the middle and telling the stories. And he now runs operations for multiple brands, including Starbucks in China, on food delivery. And every day, about 6 to 7 million orders passes through his team. He said it's a pretty tough job. This is observing a morning shift at the delivery hub in Zhejiang. So we went up.
Which one is Jiang Gan? Which one are you?
I had a hat, a cap, yeah. Can you put it back? Yeah. So it's 5:30, and all the parcels are coming in and get distributed to each individual courier. and then they would drive their small tricycles out to do the delivery. So what we did realize from this trip is that a lot of the decisions are actually made by the couriers themselves. You would think that the Chinese companies micromanage and control everything, but actually it's far from that. They managed to build a system where the decisions at different layers are made by people at different layers. And people at different layers are held accountable for their decisions. And collectively, it forms an ecosystem that actually moves at scale. This is inside the live streaming studio in Hangzhou. Yeah. So this is me trying to deliver e-commerce parcel in EU, and they said I was not qualified because I was not wearing a proper uniform. I went to also visit a EV manufacturing plant in Chongqing. So this is not about the cars which can do fancy moves, but look at what's rolling out of the production line is 3 different car models of different brands, of different colors. How did they, yeah, how did they engineer the whole process and system to allow a manufacturing plant to cater to so much customers? Every car here is made to order. And while at the same time retain efficiency. So that was the key learning of that half day, that half day we spent at the place. So this is the largest convenience store network in China. So they just crossed 40,000 store count last year. So what we learned, the most interesting part is that how did they fight against their competitors in each city? They go to a new city with a strong competitor with 2,000 stores, and what tactics they employed to actually overthrow the incumbent and become market number 1. At Air Cargo Traffic Control Center in South China, learning about how the whole cargo and trade flows internationally. And at a quick commerce warehouse near Shanghai, and how did they manage to digitize the whole sort of vegetable supply chain process and survive as a small company, small company, amid lots of competition from the big guys, the big platforms. So this is at the Mobile World Group flagship store in Ho Chi Minh City. And this is actually the visit guided by the city government as well as Mr. To from the MW Group himself. Yes, and MWG, as some of you might know, is the largest retail chain in Vietnam by store count as well as by revenue. So a lot of interesting stories about what they have built over the years, from electronics retailer to nowadays they are also one of the largest grocery and fresh retailers. This is a meeting at the Ho Chi Minh City Department of Industry and Trade. We actually brought international business delegation to Ho Chi Minh, and it was very interesting learnings over the few days, and really talking to the relevant stakeholders about what businesses could happen in a city. And one person in the delegation told us that 3 days with us, is equivalent to half days of his own work trying to open business in a city. Half a year.
Not half a day.
Half a year, yeah. We distilled everything into the MWX Executive Immersion Program in Singapore, where we decoded Chinese business logic and made it ours. So this is something that we will do more this year to really put all these learnings together and in a comfortable environment close to where we are, and where we can look at all these case studies and all these learnings, all these playbooks. So let's go through the first 5 2026 predictions. I think I have briefly read through all of them, and Sophia said that your favorite is number 3, customer loyalty. Number 1, TikTok Shop catches up with Shopee in parcel volume. So many of you are probably in the e-commerce ecosystem or get impacted by the e-commerce ecosystem, because that's taking an increasing share of the retail pie in Southeast Asia. And historically, we had Shopee, which actually doing very well. But since 2021, and there is a new player called TikTok Shop. And people initially were saying that, oh, this is the social media platform. And social media platforms typically do not do e-commerce very well. And true, they made lots of stumbles and mistakes in the beginning. Then they went quiet since last year. And people were saying that, oh, have they given up because they are now putting their focus into the US market? But no, they are still growing quite rapidly. So this is a photo I took at the random condominium in Malaysia. And in many places in Malaysia, they will put all the parcels on a table so that people will collect themselves. And obviously some people order lots of oat milk. But on this, what's interesting is, can you guess which ones are Shopee parcels and which ones are TikTok Shop parcels? Anyone? It is kind of obvious. So the ones in orange are Shopee parcels, and the ones not in orange are TikTok Shop parcels. That same evening, I went through 3 or 4 different tables, and basically saw the same pattern. You have almost equal number of Shopee versus TikTok Shop parcels. And of course, if you dig a little bit deeper, you realize that the Shopee parcels typically are bigger than the TikTok Shop parcels. And this also corresponds to the value of goods sold on Shopee being a little bit higher compared to what you will see nowadays on TikTok Shop. Yesterday, J&T Express, the largest logistic network in Southeast Asia, announced their Q4 2025 operating metrics. And you will see that if we add this number to the whole year for 2025, they had a 68% growth in parcel volume to 7.65 billion. So this number is actually far higher than what you would see in India, and it's actually higher than what you would see in the United States as well. So, and you will say that, okay, who gives J&T the volume? Aside from TikTok Shop, nobody else is able to actually give that volume to J&T. So you can use that as a good proxy of the growth of TikTok Shop. And in Q4 2025, J&T delivered on average of 27 million parcels a day in Southeast Asia. And most of this growth comes from TikTok Shop. Side note, J&T's financials, the operating metrics, also showed that their parcel volume in China is starting to decline. So that might be another big story, which will lead to more Chinese companies coming out of China because of the saturated market. So, number 2, how does Shopee defend against TikTok Shop? Because again, many of us are actually operating on e-commerce, and many of us get impacted by e-commerce. So, and whatever Shopee does and TikTok Shop does, collectively would impact how we design our initiatives for 2026 and beyond. Where should we put our attention, our budget, our human resources, our goods? So a bit of the background. Those of you who have been following the public stock market would realize that C Group's share price has declined drastically after reaching a peak in Q3 2025. So it almost dropped by half. And the chart below, which shows the take rate versus the profitability, and gives you the picture, right? Investors are concerned where you have been raising the take rate. I mean, those of you who have been selling on the platform or operating on the platform will know that, okay, you have to pay more and more for the same goods that you sell. But with all this, Shopee as a whole, the profitability actually decreased. What happened? Where did all this money go? So of course, we know that many of them actually went into subsidies for Shopee to maintain a market share versus TikTok Shop. How the subsidies are done and stuff, there are lots of detailed studies on that. But what we do see is that I think Shopee is investing to actually defend its market share. So when we look at the dynamics amongst the different platforms in Southeast Asia, Shopee historically has managed to do one thing really well. They identified that Southeast Asia for the stage between 2016 to 2022, as a whole, were not a premium market. I think players like Lazada, etc., they designed very, very good products and for branded stuff. But the growth in Southeast Asia for e-commerce at that stage was really for the masses market. So Shopee tapped into the savings value proposition very well. And I think the other platforms tried over the course of history to try to say that, okay, how do we make it cheaper than Shopee? And they couldn't do it. So we put this under this framework, selection, speed, quality, savings, or SSQS. But then there's this player called TikTok Shop which came in. Where do you put them onto this framework? Because it does everything okay-ish, and it requires a lot of heavy lifting from all the players on the platform to do content creation. And I think now you see all the affiliates, all the influencers, or the content producers, or the studios being built. It's actually much heavier compared to operating on Shopee and Lazada. But somehow it has the users, and it's very determined to monetizing these users via e-commerce. And it has the base that they had already built in China, so which allows them to do the e-commerce operations in a reasonably efficient way. And that poses a big threat to Shopee and all the other e-commerce players, because you can't find a way to tell people that, okay, they look at something interesting on TikTok Shop, they'll just buy it, because everything happens. All the conversion is inside the app. And it's very hard for you to hijack that process and take the customers. So how does Shopee do to defend? I think we summarize two things that they have been focusing on. First is delivery experience. Many of you would notice that over the last year and a half or 2 years, the delivery speed of Shopee has increased. So having an in-house delivery arm actually helps them, right? Because at the end of the day, you can force the in-house delivery arm to actually increase the service level. While if you have a third party, they have to care about their own profitability. So there was a tug of war always. So, sorry, here.
There's been there are 3 questions.
Yeah.
Can I read it out to you?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is from Xiongju. He's asking for the previous prediction.
Yeah.
Will TikTok Shop overtake Shopee in Vietnam?
Yeah.
And has it already surpassed Shopee? Number 1. Number 2 is Josh is asking any comments on Amazon Prime. I think this is for Singapore.
Yeah.
And number 3, also from Josh, also Grab, especially if you are now talking about
instant delivery. Yeah. So should I address these questions now?
Yeah.
Okay, the first question about Vietnam. We know that Vietnam is a market that TikTok Shop management globally has put a lot of emphasis on. We know that the Vietnam team with TikTok Shop has been doing a good job, but we also know that they are being under lots of pressure to actually become the market number 1. So the market is shifting, but our sense is that when it comes to parcel volume, I think TikTok Shop would have probably surpassed Shopee. But the value of each parcel and the average order value of TikTok Shop is still smaller compared to Shopee. So, but the thing is that moving forwards, as this trend goes, will TikTok Shop surpass Shopee in GMV? If nothing drastic happens, it will probably be a matter of time. And second, about Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is really, so actually we had that about the Amazon in our e-commerce report. So historically, it wanted to expand across Southeast Asia. It actually hired some people and built some infrastructure. But somehow, over the years, it evolved to keeping its presence in Singapore. I think it does a decent job in Singapore, but we don't see any clear ambition of them actually going out, especially at this stage. And Grab. So if you look at the way that Shopee does the instant delivery, so here on this chart you can see that if you do the next day delivery, you send a SPS Express truck or lorry, and if you do the
Which one is it?
SPX, next day delivery above. So if you order, so this screenshot was taken today, right? Few days ago. Okay. So if you want to get a same-day delivery, and but when you get to the instant delivery, you send a Shopee food rider, and the instant delivery is different from what we understand in the Chinese or Indian context. Instant delivery is not 30 minutes, or in India's context, 10 minutes. It's 4 hours. So basically, you send a Shopee food rider to the seller's warehouse, and the seller obviously has to be in the same city as the buyer, and fetch the goods and deliver to the buyer. So it's still the same e-commerce goods that are traditionally fulfilled with a proper e-commerce logistic network, but it has been accelerated with Shopee Food. And that service is existing now in 4 countries, and we know that another country is going to launch, I think, very soon in the next few weeks or so.
Which 4 countries?
The 4 countries where you have Shopee Food.
Okay.
And the 5th country is where Sophia is from.
Philippines.
The Philippines,
Okay.
yeah. So Shopee has been focusing a lot on delivery experience, and it has also been focusing on cheaper prices. I think internally it has been giving managers lots of pressure to say that, okay, our goods need to be cheaper than what you can find on TikTok Shop. I think at the end of the day, this is not a hard value proposition to do, because the operating cost and the model on TikTok Shop naturally means that the cost base is higher. So, and the TikTok Shop's Chinese cousin doing e-commerce tried to build on the cheap value proposition, but they realized they couldn't do it effectively, because at the end of the day, it's still a social media platform, and advertising is a large chunk of their base of revenue. So with this, Shopee is expanding from savings to speed. So trying to have 2 value propositions at the same time. And it's actually interesting amongst the SSQS.
SSQS is coined by our next gen
Gen Alpha.
Gen
Alpha intern. Because we said the selection, speed, quality, savings. This is too complicated. Well, let's just call it SSQS. Yeah. Anyway, so amongst all these 4 value propositions, the speed and savings are the things that the customers can feel immediately, right? I mean, if something delivers you too fast versus slowly, if something that's cheaper, and the quality, it can be a bit subjective and hard to discern, and different people have different preferences. Selection, I mean, most of the time you don't actually need that. So these 2 are the value propositions that Shopee have been focusing on. And I think as a platform, Shopee still has a lot of work to do to refine its buying experience and its operational efficiency across different areas. So for instance, nowadays, if you buy a mobile phone on Shopee, and the experience is still not as good as if you would get on platforms like Lazada. So there's still lots of work to do. But this work would, if done properly, would allow Shopee to build a solid foundation that the folks like TikTok Shop, etc., would say that, okay, it's too much effort, it's not worth my time. I might just go and sell more ads, which they could. It's also a good sort of monetizing avenue for them. Of course, SSQs can also be applied to other industries. This is something that we designed in 2024 when we were building the workshop that we did with business schools called SIP Innovate Repeat. We look at the different coffee chains, analyze the business model, as well as distill lessons for innovation. So as you can see, it could be applied to different industries as well. So prediction number 3, customer loyalty, LTV, and margin are being redefined, driven by Chinese competition. Those of you who have come to the first MWX Insights Session on the 23rd of December 2025, that's like 2.5 weeks ago, time goes fast, would know that we spent actually a whole hour discussing about LTV, and this is what top Chinese companies care about a lot. And to be honest, you only have to care about top Chinese companies, because they are the ones which are coming out and competing against you. So this is again Kai-Fei. I showed his image just now. A very good friend who has been with us through a lot of different programs. So we were asked this question during the MWX immersion. What's the non-negotiable primary metric for e-commerce companies in China? And he answered without hesitation. It is lifetime value over the customer acquisition cost, or LTV over CAC. But, he added, the LTV over CAC for Taobao will be very different from the LTV over CAC for a small e-commerce brand. As CAC keeps going up, that's the case for almost everyone. Only a clear LTV lets you decide whether to keep playing. And sometimes it takes some serious investigation to find out what would be your clear LTV. So that explains a lot of the actions that many Chinese players take, right? I mean, we have lots of examples, but I'll just use one here. Video commerce. In Southeast Asia, when you do things on video commerce, they will say that, okay, I need to have a ROAS, return on ad spend. So if I spend $1 on ad, I need to get $2 or to $5 of sales back, because I mean I still have the cost of goods sold and all this operational cost, logistics. So, but in China, as long as it's equal to 1, and many players are already able to game, they're willing to game. Because of the competition, lots of players are actually spending a lot of time in a very low cost environment. And that's not only e-commerce. Even in areas like digital lending, like lots of Chinese players are willing to say that, okay, I look at the portfolio basis. I don't have to make money from each individual customer, but as long as I can balance the acquisition versus the lifetime value on a portfolio basis, I have a viable business, and I have a defendable business against my competition. Number 4, AI reshapes organizations before products. So we did all this additional work at the Momentum Works in 2025 without actually increasing the team size. We are the same size as we were from the beginning of the year, but the people have become more efficient because of all the AI tools that we have been adopting and we have been paying for. So, but this is also a discussion that we got raised about in almost every single sort of expert interview, every single immersion. And a good friend from a leading sort of internet platform in China told us that the whole management team of, so basically the managers of each department or each business unit were asked by the company leadership, if you were to redesign your department fully with AI, how would you do that? So it's a mental exercise, and it's a strenuous exercise because that forces the people to say that, okay, if we start my department from 0 today, how would I do things differently? And I was asking him, why would you do that? Because you are not starting from 0, right? And as such a large organization with hundreds of thousands of employees, and you can't just start from 0. And he said, but we need to prevent players who start from 0 to outcompete us. Yeah. So some of the discussions we had about AI during our immersions were pretty interesting. So this is a discussion we had with Dr. Gu, who is the founding team member of Google China, and then he went to co-found one of the large language model companies after serving a few years as a CTO of Cainiao Networks, which is the logistic arm of Alibaba. So again, like, that's not half a day, that's 2.5 hours of discussion, but packed with information. She had a lot of interesting perspectives about AI and what you should do and what you should not do. I just took a few pointers from the notes we had. So how large organizations should adopt AI? Carve-outs, not revolutions. Let me read through them. Adopt coding agent first as the default way of working. PMs and ops become builders by agents. And she was really optimistic about agent. And now we see a lot of startups are actually exploring different agents. Reshape the talent pyramid. Prioritize and amplify senior engineers and architects because they will help redesign lots of the things in a very much more efficient way for the organization. Run an AI native experimentation track in parallel because you have active ongoing business you don't want to impact. Plug the AI front end into traditional back end first. Again, so practical solutions that you want to benefit the AI without having to think too much about, okay, what are the implications if I replace everything. Expect bottom-up productivity innovation and standardize them. I find this notion quite interesting because we see lots of competitions of AI, asking employees to come out with ideas about AI, but these ideas are often forced. And she said a better approach is give people a little bit of leeway to play with some AI tools, see how they use AIs from a sort of indigenous way, and see which ones you can take and standardize across the organization. And that will bring a lot of value for you. Number 5, the issue of job and career pathways for junior talents. And this is actually an issue discussed extensively because a lot of junior people, they will not have the judgment to be able to use AI effectively, and yet what they can deliver on a daily basis can easily be replaced by AI. And her point is that, okay, you don't worry about this issue too much because as technology evolves, people will find their way to equilibrium. The problem will resolve themselves. If you try too much to try to think and deal with this problem, you will not move. And that will end up harming yourself, your organization more. So last year, we also issued a report in collaboration with Lazada. We did quite a bit of data crunching to see across the e-commerce ecosystem how much value can be unlocked by AI, because we look at e-commerce nowadays, a lot of the work is manual. You have lots of work. I mean, of course, there's some marginal improvement with sort of image generation, et cetera, but still there's a lot which can be done to improve the efficiency. And I'm not saying that it is easy, but I'm just saying that if some organizations figure out how to do it effectively, that's going to cascade across the different ecosystem. And then we'll see some platforms are actually taking a very active approach to facilitate this, because at the end of the day, from a platform's point of view, is in their very interest that the e-commerce penetration increases drastically across the region. Number 5, the last one in a lot we'll cover today, China-Southeast Asia collaboration is shifting from supply chain transfer to operating model exchange. Through all this, I said in the beginning that all our immersions, we don't bring people to see fancy stuff like drones dancing in the sky and robots.
They do see it.
They do see it, but it's not our sort of objective. Our objective is to see that how the drone can deliver your goods reliably and what's the business model behind it. And but we do see a lot of interesting discussions between the Chinese players and the foreign parties, and we do see where the gaps are in terms of understanding about the business models, in terms of the context of how things have evolved to where they are today. So if left unchecked, quite often, I think even in Southeast Asia, historically, we see a lot of tech joint ventures between Chinese players and the local players fail because the two parties are not operating on the same wavelength. And when you are not, mistrust will grow, and eventually you will find it very hard to work together.
Well, one thing that I've observed, is that lots of companies outside China just tries to copy what they see, and it doesn't work out most of the time.
Or the Chinese companies are trying to do the same thing, right? They're trying to copy whatever. So it's the same thing here. I mean, the Chinese companies are trying to figure out the playbook in Southeast Asia, right? And the Southeast Asian companies also trying to figure out what's the best way to leverage the Chinese playbook.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, historically it was easy, right? I mean, not easy. Historically, the most workable way is that, okay, I find someone to source from Guangzhou, supply chain. But things have evolved into something more comprehensive. What else? Anything else you have observed?
The logic. I think understanding the logic is very important.
Understanding the logic, because absolutely, you're absolutely spot on. A lot of the things, if you understand the logic of how things came to where it is today in China as well as in Southeast Asia, then you will be able to see that, okay, which are the factors that you can actually copy? Which are the factors that you can't copy because there's just no existing infrastructure, or there's additional friction in the destination market. And when both sides are trying to figure out how to adapt the playbook, sometimes you have very interesting results. Like, I mean, I think you did the day before yesterday, somebody texted you saying that they're concluding a very successful partnership.
Yeah.
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 And initially was very painful.
China-India partnership.
Yeah. Initially it was very painful because really the different context. But as long as the both parties are willing to dedicate resources and attention, we need to understand each other, things work out. So this is a photo which I think is quite epic. So
taken by you.
Did I take this photo?
Yes,
I did.
photo,
Okay,
yes.
that's why I was not in it. Right. So we brought a total of 35 to 40 business owners from China to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam for a week long of business immersion and lots of business meetings. So one thing they're trying to learn is that how do we cross the street? And so this is something that I've never seen before. You see everyone line up in a very, very disciplined way, I think true to Chinese manufacturing or whatever. And they're trying to figure out how to cross. Eventually everybody crossed. Initially some people said, this is impossible and stuff, but eventually everybody crossed. And from that trip, we see a few interesting business opportunities emerge. People actually find ways to work with each other. Because at the end of the day, when you clear the contextual differences and set the common objectives, and things become much easier for people to work together. And we see a lot of examples, detailed case studies, which you will not see being published in the newspapers and reports. So this is a very interesting poster from Lazada. I think a week ago. In the East Asian zodiac, this year is the year of the horse. So this says that okay, if Chinese brands want to come to Southeast Asia, please choose Lazada. Lazada has a way to work with brands well. So and they're trying to bring more brands into Southeast Asia. So will we see more in the year of the horse, because that's supposed to be auspicious for galloping. So what? What does all this mean to you? I think.
We have 4 lessons.
So we have 4 points, and in Yolin's term, 4 do nots. And the first is that do not forget who your core customers are. So this image shows the market share of e-commerce platforms in China between 2017 and 2024, and in 2016 to 2024. And Alibaba and JD were dominant, and then Pinduoduo and Douyin came about, and things started dropping. But in 2024, after Alibaba's market share dropped to 40%, it stopped. So it was that because of all the actions that they took in the 2 prior years. The company was in a panic mode, right? They did a spin-off, they sold, etc., etc. And was that because of all the actions they did, or because the 40% of the customers that are peeled away, these are the customers which are easy to peel away, but you have a core customers who will stick with you, which is very hard for others to take away from you. And I spoke with quite a few people inside the organization, and they tend to believe it is the latter, right? Once you hit your core customer base, it's much harder for your competitors to take it away from you. So why do I think this is interesting? Because in Southeast Asia, we see in a lot of sectors, you have competitors coming in, new competitors who move faster, who seem invincible, who are very aggressive. And in response, a lot of the players are doing things to try to contain them in all the ways possible. But quite often, what matters is that if you forget your core, your decline will happen faster. If you focus on solidifying your core and build that layer to support the periphery, you can find a way to defend.
This is the message for all the platforms, especially against TikTok.
All the platforms, all the brands, all the ones which see in the market being disrupted with new players and with new aggressive players which seem invincible. Number 2, this is actually something interesting, and I think everyone knows it. So do not start from your cost base. Start from what customers are willing to pay.
This was from the
Yeah, it's from Mr. Guo, who led Misha into Southeast Asia. And he was also a very early employee of the company. So we're asking him, why would Misha decide to set ice cream at 2 yuan? And he said, our competitors start with costs at a margin and call that a price. We start with what customers are willing to pay, set that as a price, then design the supply chain and operations to deliver that profitably. As it turned out, the customers were willing to pay 2 yuan for ice cream. Then they re-engineered the supply chain. When we visited lots of Chinese companies, Meituan, etc., everyone has the same mindset. Find out what customers are willing to pay and look at our cost structure to see how we can re-engineer the operation and supply chain to meet that cost while still making a profit.
What's the Ice King doing?
Oh, the Snow King
What's
was...
the background for that?
It's a funny meme of Snow King defending against the landmark of Shanghai, because Shanghai is seen the most affluent city in China, and that's the opposite side of the masses. Number 3, do not solely analyze data from your comfort zone. Combine this with going to the ground. Most people that we are dealing with on a daily basis, I mean, even ourselves, we are extremely data driven. We try to find things from data. We try to sort of make decisions that are based on data. But the problem is, quite often, data only tell you things that you already know, because somebody in your organization or yourself designed the data along the lines that you have identified. If you don't go to the ground, you would not know what you have missed, which your competitors could seize. So that was one question asked by a emerging participant to a Chinese platform, saying that you have the wealth of the data much better than what we do in our country. Why don't you just rely on the data? He said,
why do you go to tier 3, tier 4
cities on the ground and spend lots of effort? And
in a factory, yeah.
And the guys, the response was that these guys are not ordering on our platform as much as they should. So we don't have the data to understand why they are not ordering. And that's our growth opportunity. And when that gets amplified and multiplied across different sectors, you have amazing growth. Number 4, do not budget for innovation. This might come across as counterintuitive, because it's the natural for every organization to set a budget for everything. So this is also a discussion. So the question was, when you design innovation, how do you set a budget? And the answer is, we don't. We only set the maximum amount of money we're willing to lose. What does that mean? So we basically have an option of downside protection, but within that, I mean, how the money is exactly spent, at which pace, and how do we design a program along the way, that we need to have flexibility, because otherwise, once you start rigidify things for new things, you move more slowly. And when you move more slowly, the management will question the validity of the new project more, and quite often it leads to a downward spiral. And quite a number of well-known initiatives by top companies in the region fail, I think, because of exactly that.
Something closer to home that we've done in our workshop last year, maybe you can actually help me add on, is that where should the budget for live commerce, live streaming go? Is it sales or marketing?
No, it should just be a budget for live.
It just should be used for innovation.
Yeah. So we still have 5 more predictions. I think, look at the time, we have like 1 minute more, right? So we'll not go through this in detail, but e-commerce logistic war, scale, etc., etc. So this will be in the slides that we're going to share after this with a little bit of explanation, so you will get that. And if you have any questions, but feel free to reply to our email. So the full set. In 2026, what we will do is, I think we'll try to help everyone move from observing the phenomenon to mastering logic. This is something that we will do ourselves as well. Decode how leading Chinese companies win, translate a new playbook into your own, and join the strategic dialogue. With that, done.
Thank you for spending the 1 hour, everybody.
Thank you, and feel free to just ask any questions. And I don't think we have time here, but just feel free to email us, contact us. We're here. We will spend more time in Southeast Asia in a year to come, because I mean last year is just really too much travel. But have a great 2026, and we hope to see you more often this year. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Done.
Good.
Whoa.